All right, let's go. Dr. Mishna, yeah. So now we finally get into some practical hilchos Yom Tov. Yeah. So b'shamay oimrim, tavla nidachim b'madach shel eitz. Yeah, spices, you're allowed to crush them with a wooden crusher. B'melach b'pach, and salt with a pach, which is some sort of a cup, meaning not the normal way. Ube'etz haporor, and with a mixing spoon. So basically, Bisham is saying that you can only use a wooden crusher, not the standard stone crusher, and the melach you can only do with a pach, right? Which is some sort of wood thing.
You could have been messed over, man. That's just in the car. I could have got stolen so easy.
Yeah, weiter. Right, Beis Hillel says tavlin nidaychin kedarkon, and tavlin can be crushed like the regular way with madach shel even, with a stone one, v'amelach b'madach shel eitz, and salt can be crushed with only wood. So basically, what we're saying is Beis Hillel holds you can crush spices any way you want, right? And but melach you can't. Now melach, Rashi says, is talking about the natural clump of salt, because if it's salt that gets wet and then becomes like a clump, and then you want to crush it, that's not a problem, because that's ain't teichen acha. There's no teichen acha teichen. Once was already ground up, so then it's not a problem. But either way, so that's the Machlokes v'sham Beis Hillel. So Gemara says the kuli yama miyas melach by shinui. Everybody holds that salt needs a shinui. Even Beis Hillel says it needs to be done a little differently. My time. What's the reason? It's a Machlokes of Ravuna bar Chisda. Chadam rekolak there is kulan tzrichas melach. Every pot needs salt. Beina kolak there is tzrichas tavlin, and not every pot needs spices. So therefore, what? And this is an important yesod in hilchos Yom Tov, right? That since you know that every pot needs salt, you should have ground your salt from before Yom Tov. Meaning we don't have carte blanche to do whatever we want on Yom Tov. Anything that could be prepared before Yom Tov and will not taste any worse should be prepared before Yom Tov. So spices, you don't necessarily know if you're going to need spices. So you don't have to prepare before Yom Tov. But salt, you're going to know automatic that you're going to need salt. So you should have crushed it before Yom Tov. And if you didn't, then you're going to have to do it with a shinui. Right?
What about if you know the recipe, so you know you're going to need spices?
Then then according to this, you have to. It's really going to be the nafkamina, the Gemara in a minute. Then you have to crush it before. We'll get to that in a minute.
No. Sorry.
What's the problem?
Shouldn't have said like that. I'm sorry.
What's that? So let's see. What?
Depends if there's a difference in the spices. If you crush them the day before Yom Tov, they won't be as good.
Right, so we'll get to that. We're going to get to both in a minute. All spices will get worse. Right, spices, if you're going to do it before, fresh spices, right, is going to be better than unfresh spices. Yeah, so my binaya, what's the difference between them? You could be now the yada my kedera boy lebeshule. See, David, exactly what he's saying, that if he knows that his kedera is going to need spices, inami b'mayrika, or this type of spice that doesn't lose any flavor. Right?
Saffron.
Yeah, saffron. I never heard of anybody using saffron, but okay. I'm not from the cooks. I'm from the eaters. Yeah. So basically, what comes out, l'maskonas advarim, according to this, what comes out is if you know you're going to need it, then you have to do it Erev Yom Tov. And if you don't, you're going to have to do it with a shinui. Or if you know that the food is not going to taste as good, then you can wait till Yom Tov. But really, it should be done before Yom Tov. Yeah. So we'll get to the practical when we get to the bottom of Amud. Somebody Shmuel kolani daichen gedarkan vafilu melach. Rabbi Yehuda from Shmuel seems to say different than our Mishnah, because he's saying anything you're crushing, you can crush in the regular way, and even salt, So Gemara says, "V'amr melech b'ay shinui." Didn't we say that salt needs a shinui? So Gemara answers, "Hu d'amar ki yatana d'tanya Amar Meir le'nechelku Beis Shammai Beis Hillel ala nidaychen shenidaychen kedarkan." There's no machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel that you can crush spices in the regular way, umelach iman, and if you want to mix in salt and crush the salt while you're crushing the spices, that's fine. There's no machlokes only when you're crushing it by itself. Now this adds on another wrinkle. Ishami says salt you can only do it within a wood utensil or in a pach, which is a shinui, and only enough for roasting, but not for cooking. Because when you're roasting, you use much less salt. You use much less salt than you use for cooking. So you're only allowed to do it in small amounts and with a shinui, according to Beis Shammai. So b'chol davar you can do it. You can crush with anything. So Gemara says b'chol davar sakadaitach. Do you mean you can really do it with anything, even stuff that's muksa? Aleima lichol davar. No, you can crush it for anything that you want. Right? Fine. So, so we have a few stories here, not major stories. When you crush things, lean it, like atzli means to lean it on its side and then crush it that way. So do it with a little bit of a shinui. Sheshes shama kol buchna. Right, Rav Sheshes. Hold on a second. Let me just trying to mute. Yeah, okay. So Rav Sheshes, Shama called Buchna. Rav Sheshes heard the sound of a Buchna. That's a thing that you crush spices with. Amar Hai Lab Megave de Beisai, how it's not from my house. Because in my house, I tell them to do it with a shinui, and this is very loud. When you say Vidilma Tzli, I say maybe it was done with a shinui, and they leaned it on the side. So he says the Shamet Havatzala, because I heard it very clear. Havatzala Koli, I heard the voice very clearly, so there it wouldn't be on its side. Vidilma Tavlin Hava, maybe it was spices and not salt, so they didn't need a shinui. Tavlin Nevuchem and Navach Kalai. Spices makes a very loud sound, and the salt doesn't make such a loud sound. Okay, so that's really the end. That's not really the end of the sugya, but that's the main part of the sugya. So the Maisa, what do you say?
So someone I know pointed out over here that Rav Sheshes Fadavka was making a point that he was blind, that his other senses got stronger, so he was able to hear so strong. That from next door he knew that it wasn't bent, it wasn't tilted or whatever.
Because his hearing got stronger.
Yeah.
I hear. Interesting. Yeah. So anyway, so how do we pass?
How does the bechol davar luchol bechol davar and luchol davar? How does that answer those machlokes?
Because he's saying that you give it lechol davar, you can do it for anything, not with anything. Meaning he doesn't differentiate between salting for roasting or salting for cooking.
Uh-huh.
Right? Hold on, let's mute him too. Yeah, okay. That's what he's saying. So now what's the practical? So Lamaisa, there's a few different madrigas. Anything that's going to get ruined from before Shabbat, from before Yom Tov, you're allowed to crush it on Yom Tov. So Lamashal, making bananas, crushing bananas and apples and anything type of fruit that you have to crush, you're allowed to do that regularly on Yom Tov, even with regular utensils.
What's wrong?
Right? I don't know what's with everybody tonight. I don't know what's with everybody tonight with the not muting.
It's funny how it's all tonight.
It's all tonight. Yeah, it must be a hectic time. Yeah.
It's booked now. We're talking about hearing sounds.
Sure. Very good. Very good. So anyways, the halacha l'maisa is that if it's something that's mamish going to get ruined if you crush it the day before, you could crush it on Yom Tov. If it's something that's not going to get ruined at all, then you really can't crush it on Yom Tov. And if you did, you have to do it with two shinuis. There's a 2 shinuis, then you have to do with a full shinui. I'm sorry, you got to do with a total full shinui, which is either do it with like the back of a spoon, or with a spoon if you normally use a crusher, or instead of crushing it into a plate, you crush it onto a counter, onto a tabletop, right? And then you have the middle, right? The middle would be like spices, which would be better fresh, but lamaisa they're perfectly fine not fresh. So there you would have to also do with a slight shinui. I do it a little differently than so that's the basic kitzur of these halachas of the practical that comes out.
Is spices subjective at all? Like for most of us, we use spice out of a bottle. What about a chef, a real, a gourmet chef who would never do that? He would always crush fresh spices.
It's still, I mean, even for him, it'll get slightly better.
But he does notice the difference. That's why he does it.
Yeah, okay, but it's not going to be so bad. Meaning, I don't think it'll kill his Yom Tov, no?
No, but
No, that's I think. Anyway, so fine. So now Tana Rabbanan, about 8 lines up. Tana Rabbanan, ain't nice in Tisni. You can't make Tisni on Yom Tov. So what exactly is Tisni? It's some sort of, Rashi says, it's a Tereach Gadol. You're crushing wheat and you're splitting it, you end up cutting it into 4s. So ain't nice in Tisni, ain't koichin b'machteshes, and you can't crush with a crusher, right? So Gemara says tarti. How can they both be true, right? Tarti, you're saying 2 different dinim. It's 2 different. They're saying the opposite, right? You can't make tisni. It's mashma. You can make other things, and then it says ein koichin. It's mashma only crushing. You can't make, but you can make other things. So meaning, why are you saying 2 specific things you can't make? Mashma that everything else you could make, right? If you just said one thing, so then everything else would be allowed. But now you're saying you can't make this, can't make that. So each sentence by itself is mashma that other things are fine, and when then they're not, because you're saying 2 different things. So when it says tisni, why can't you make this tisni food? Because you're not allowed to crush it with a crusher, right? So why don't you just say don't crush with a crusher, right? And then you can't make this tisni. Gemara says, "Itani ein koichin b'machteshes." If it would just say not to crush it, that's only by a large one of a machteshes ketana, but a small crusher, a mashaper dummy, maybe that's better, right? Because it's not the way you make it normally. It's like kilachar yad, kamash malon, that you are not allowed to make it even in a small one. Gemara says, "Vatanya ein koichin b'machteshes gedola." Says in Brisa, you can't do a machteshes gedola.
Don't worry about
I was gonna say this is
it.
Aaron, mute.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
You want to take a guess? Want to take a guess who's next?
I Dafka left. I came to my mother's house. I could have done it in my house. My mother's not home tonight. I said, no, I'm coming here because it's quiet.
Why? No drums?
No drums tonight. At least not yet. Anyway, Vatanya ain't kachim machteshes gedola. You're not allowed to crush with a machteshes gedola. I'll kachim machteshes katana, but you are allowed to crush with a small one. So Rabbi Kitanya now masnisa machteshes gedola. No, what the brisa means is with a large one, but the small one you're allowed to crush with. Which again, we're going to use the same thing. One second, let's finish the teretz. So Tanya, I'm sorry, I left off in the middle of a sentence here. It's talking about a machteshes gedola. That's one teretz, meaning that we differentiate between a large one and a small one. Rava Amar, like kasha, halon, v'halahu. One is us and one is them, meaning us in Bavel, and the lahu is them in Eretz Yisrael. So there's a Machlokes how to learn this here. Rashi says, us and Bavel don't have avodim, so there's no michshol coming out of it. But in Eretz Yisrael, they had avodim that were mezalzel in the Yom Tov, and they ended up using large crushers as opposed to small ones, but they told everybody that they were using small ones. So since they were messing it up, so therefore they didn't allow using any sort of, no crushing any sort of spices.
This is the only instance where Avadim did something bad.
I don't know.
Their Avadim did something bad.
And a chanami.
Dishonest?
Yeah, that's the way. I don't know. The only, another area we see that the Avodim did bad is by the bathhouses. I don't know who's the Avodim necessarily, but they said that they were heating up the water before Shabbos, and they really heated it up on Shabbos. So that was a time that they also made a knas. But I think the Rambam, so somebody else says pshat, that it's different, that in Eretz Yisrael, you didn't have to crush at all because their spices were so good, you could have crushed it from Erev Yom Tov. But the Bavel spices, you would it wasn't so strong, not so good. So therefore you had to crush it. You had to crush it on Yom Tov. Okay. So, but we use this also, that when you're going to crush spices on Yom Tov, you can't do it in large amounts. You can only do it in small amounts.
What's halacha l'maisa to it?
Yeah, it's halacha l'maisa. Well, it depends. The halacha l'maisa is, like we said, is if it's going to be the same strength and the same taste, then you should crush them in Erev Yom Tov. If you didn't, then you got to do it in an abnormal way. Right? If it's somewhere in the middle, then you have to do it with a little bit of a shinui. But that's it.
And this spices carries over to other things?
Yeah, it's really the rule with Yom Tov is with everything. Like Lamashal, you're making Jello for Yom Tov. Jello is not going to taste any better if you make it on Yom Tov. So you have to make it before Yom Tov. Fish, right? Fish, as far as I know, maybe it's cooked fresh. Then maybe it does taste better. Chicken, I don't know. I think fresh food is better than frozen. But that's
fresh schnitzel is definitely better than
100%.
Than if it's made the day before.
100%. Yeah. Fresh. Fresh cooking, Lamaisa is better. Oh, all the women are cooking before Yom Tov and freezing it. So why is that a covered Yom Tov? Every time I bring it up, it's bad news. It's bad news. So whatever. That's the way it goes.
That's why it says in Koheles, you have to love your wife. Eric Tess. So that's good for this.
I hear. But then you got to buy freezers. It's a whole whatever. Okay, fine. Rav Papa.
I think your wife is an avodah.
Yeah. So Rav Papa ikla levei Mar Shmuel. Rav Papa traveled to Beis Shmuel. I see like daisa v'lo yachol. They brought him daisa, also some sort of wheat thing, and he didn't eat it. So why didn't he eat it? Because he was afraid that they shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have done it on Yom Tov, and with a regular way of crushing it. Maybe they did it with the small one, which you said is allowed in Bavel. The Chazi because he saw it was cut up very nice. It was crushed very, very well. So he said it must be they used the big crusher. Maybe they did it yesterday. How did he know that they did it on Yom Tov? The Chazi because he saw that it was like peeled. It was peeled. It looked shiny, so it looked like it was freshly peeled. So he knew that it was done on Yom Tov. The same thing as we said before. But Beis Shmuel, he knew that there was pritus from the Avodim, that the Avodim didn't listen. So since they didn't listen, right, and they would use the large one, so he was concerned for that. So therefore, he didn't eat it. Okay. That's the halacha with the crushing. It's also negeya to making charoisas, right? Grinding moror on for the sedarim, right? So moror l'chayr is better if it's fresh, but lemaisa you could grind up the moror, whatever they call it, grate it from before. So that's why when you're doing it on Yom Tov, you should do it with a little bit of a shinui. Same thing with the charoisas, right? You should do a little bit of a shinui. Okay, zog the Mishna. Habayra kidney is beyond the. Oh, so the famous thing with bayra. What's with bayra on Yom Tov? Right. So a bayra now. So there's a lot of confusion with bayra on Yom Tov because why shouldn't you be able to do bayra on Yom Tov? You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, so why can't you do bayra? So let's see. So a bayra kidney is beyond Yom Tov. You're doing bayra on kidneys on Yom Tov. You have to do it like Shabbos. You have to take the good and eat it, right? Not same as Shabbos. You're all meaning Shabbos. You have to. What's the big three? You have to take the good from the bad. It has to be for immediate use. It has to be done with your hand, not with the utensil. Although using a fork and a spoon is considered an extension of the hand. So Beis Shammai says bayra on Yom Tov is the same as bayra on Shabbos. Beis Hillel Imrim, bayra kedarka, you can do the regular bayra becheka. You could put it into your lap. Beknayin u'tamchui. You could do it with a funnel and a tamchui. Avaloi betavla, v'loi benofa, v'loi bekfara. But you can't do it with a board, and you can't do it with the major sifters. Why? Because that's the way they do it. That's the way they do it for bulk. When you do it for bulk on Yom Tov, that's not allowed. You can only do it for what you need for immediate use, and that's it. So again, so according to Beis Hillel, you don't have a carte blanche. I mean, with everything in Yom Tov, you can't just cook.
Doesn't it depend how many people you're having?
You mean if you're having a lot of people, you still would have to. Right. So they were worried that even if you're having I think even if you're having a lot of people, you still would have to use the small. You can't use the big things because that's like a lack of covered Yom Tov.
Okay.
Right.
What about the covered Yom Tov that you're going to spend more time cooking and not actually enjoying Yom Tov?
What about the Tirchi Sarah?
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
but for covered, right? So that's what you're saying. But for covered Yom Tov, it's a balance. It's a difficult balance.
We matter a couple of months ago because Simchas Yom Tov.
What Simchas Yom Tov?
The Rabbanon for Simchas Yom Tov. Remember the Taisus?
Yeah. But the question is, you have Simchas Yom Tov versus not Simchas Yom Tov, Tirchi Yisera versus not looking like you're doing it for non-Yom Tov uses.
So what's
you're
the
doing
problem?
it in such.
It's Marasayan?
And no, I don't think it's Marasayan. I just.
What's the issue? My Shved's right. If you have 100, if you do it for 50 people at your table, why can't you use the bigger thing?
Right. So we have to actually see. We have to actually see in the Gemara because it does change a little bit. Yeah. Let's see. Rabbi Gamliel, he could even wash. Rabbi Gamliel is the most makel. He said you could even take a bucket, put it in, take all your. We're talking about kidneys now. So the same way you do with cholent beans, you put it in, and all the junk floats to the top. So and that's in bulk. So Rabbi Gamliel allows you to even do that. Yeah. So okay. So let's see. So Tanya Zogdi Gemara Tanya Amaram Gamliel, but Medvaram Murim. When did Beis Hillel say their din? That's when there's more food than the psilas. Right? So you have to just do the least amount of work is to take the bad from the good. But if there's a large amount of psilas and only a small amount of good, then everybody holds you have to take the good from the bad. And normally Beis Hillel says you could take the bad from the good. Right? But that's only when there's a small amount of bad. So it's easier to take the bad from the good. But if there's going to be a large amount of bad, then even Beis Hillel says, don't take the bad away. That's going to be too much work. Take the good away from the bad. So you see that they are concerned with working less. Right? Because he's saying in this case, you should do the less work. So Gemara asked, if there's more psilas than eichel, then the whole thing is one big muksa. Would anybody hold it? It's mutter, right? Because since it's rive junk that nobody can eat, so then the whole mixture should be considered muksa.
But you know this as you're doing it only. Meaning, I'm just saying you don't know this beforehand.
Yes, I wasn't sure. How do you know exactly? Right.
I don't know. I'm saying like going through grape tomatoes. You don't know which ones are not good and which ones are good. You go through each one, or you know what I'm saying, and then you figure it out.
No, but it seems like this is a scenario where there's a lot more junk than good. I don't know what the case would be exactly.
The bottom of a bag of pistachios.
David, he bought it at Aaron's. He thought it would be 98% good. He had no meaning.
Yeah, he got messed up. He got messed up, and now his Simchas Yom Tov is very, very, very questionable.
Yeah, I guess that's yeah. So I get it.
Where do we have this in Hilchas Muktzah? There's bittul beroivle, is there?
I had a hard time understanding the kasha, but that seems to be that's what the kasha is, right?
But in value-wise, this would be Muktzah Machmas Gufay. But I have, as part of it, something that has use. Why would that be Muktzah?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a kasha. There are Rishonim that I think there's others that learn Pshat differently in this Gemara. Right? But that's the way Rashi is saying it. He's saying it's bottle. It's bottle in the meat. It's you're right, it's an interesting thing. Anyways, so Gemara says, the nafish betircha, see, is a lot of tircha, v'zuta b'shiura, and it's less measurements. Right? So we'd rather you work less. So therefore, it's less of a shear. And therefore, we want to make sure you're going to work the least possible. Right? So from here you see that less work is better.
Now we care, but 2 lines ago we didn't.
Right. So, but to use a large sifter, there we don't care. Right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this. Gershon doesn't. He looks perplexed. We're all perplexed, Gershon. I don't know. I don't know why. The only thing I could maybe understand why is because they don't want it looking like weekday, and that's so strong that to take one that you normally do in bulk, which is not normally used on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, and it's used like in businesses, that's already too much of a pigam in Hilchos Shabbos. That's the only thing that's the only way I could understand it. I have no idea if I'm correct though.
You're saying else of the Dechal?
Yeah.
That would answer any questions on Tircha. It's a different answer.
Well, that's the question. You have to balance. They're trying to find a balance between Tircha and of the Dechal, right? Yeah. The same thing with they're trying to find a balance, which malachas they're going to allow, which malachas they're not going to allow. Yeah. Okay, fine.
Well, I would say one's in Issa Gavra, one's in Issa Chepsa to make it a brisket thing.
I hear.
What the Dechal is on the object that you can't change.
Okay, I hear. Do they say that the brisket is on this?
No, I'm saying the Gavra and the Chepsa thing. I'm not saying
I know, I understand. Does anybody has a shtickle Torah on that?
I haven't seen anything. I
don't know. Okay. Gamliel, he's the most makel. You could even wash it and let the junk, rise up. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, they would bring a bucket full of beans, and they would put water on top of it, and then the food would be on the bottom and the psals would be on the top. Oh, Vatanya Ifcha, we learned the Brisa that the opposite, that the junk goes to the bottom and the food goes to the top. Like Kasha Haba Afra Haba Gili. One is talking about dirt, which obviously sinks to the bottom because it's heavier. And Gili is like straw and stuff like that. That floats to the top. Fine. Okay, it's the Mishna. You're not allowed to send on Yom Tov only manas, like from the word mishloach manas, only things that are mamish ready to eat. Like mishloach manas is supposed to be ready to eat. Right, so on Yom Tov, Bisham says the only thing you can send to your friend is ready to eat food. No, you can b'shachem behema, chaya, oif, right? Bein chayin, bein shchutin, whether they're alive, whether they're shechted. Kidneys, you could send wine and oil and flour and kidneys. Avaloi tfua, but no grains. Reb Shimon mata b'tfua. Reb Shimon says that grain is even mutter, right? So why? Because the reason why the Beis Hillel says no tfua is because what are you going to do with tfua on Yom Tov? You can't grind it. You should have ground it before Yom Tov, right? Grain is something that's not going to get any worse if it waits a day, right? But Reb Shimon says tfua is allowed, right? And he says, Rashi says, because you can cook the tfua first and then crush it with a small crusher. So there is a way theoretically that you could use grain on Yom Tov. Fine. So the bottom line is the Machlokes is whether you're allowed to send things. Yeah.
We just came off a Gemara of Meil and Melilas. They ate kali v'karmel. That's whole grain.
I don't know.
It's edible, just roasted.
Yeah. I don't know. You're saying, I don't know if that's this. Is that this is crushed? This you want to crush?
Saying we're arguing about non-crushed, whole grains. Tvua is non-crushed, right?
Yeah.
But with tvua, they can make it kali v'karmel, caramelize it, and then eat it. They didn't grind it after that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, fine.
I guess we found who the next non-muted one is.
I only got muted for a second.
All right. So Tani Rav Yechiel, but actually you send up a shura. You can't do it in a line, right? Yeah, meaning you can't take the, well, we'll see, it's going to be 3 people, but you can't go deliver it with all this pomp and circumstance. Tana ain't shura pchusa mishloisha b'nei adam. There's no shura less than 3 people. You got it right. If it's less than 3 people, then you can deliver it. Boy Ravashi, tlasa garvi, tlasa mine mai. What happens if it's 3 people delivering 3 types of food? So what's the din? Teiku, it's teiku. Fine. Reb Shimon mata b'tuah. Reb Shimon says tuah is allowed. Tani Reb Shimon mata b'tuah.
Why are we having a giving
Jacob,
party here? A present party?
What's going on?
Why are we having a present party?
What do you mean? If you can't have your friend. You can't have
what
your friend.
What is happening? What's going on in the Mishna? What's it talking about?
You're delivering, you decide you want to share some of your good foods with your friends. Right? So Beis Shammai says you can serve foods to your friend. Beis Hillel says you could even bring stuff that's not ready yet. Right? So we're saying, so even according to Beis Hillel, who holds you allowed to do it, but you can't make a whole scene out of it. Right? You can't do it with a bunch of people.
If I'm eating by my neighbor on Yom Tov, and I arranged before that I'm taking stuff, I can't take chicken, a salad, and a dessert.
No, we're talking about you sending it to them.
That's not called a present.
What's the difference?
That's not called a present. If you're supposed to make a salad and you bring a salad, that's not called a present.
Why not?
It's a present, but you're not sending it. This is talking about sending it.
Taking it and sending it are 2 different things.
That's the way I understand it. Yeah.
I hear.
Sending it is like a weekday activity, right? That's what Rashi says. If you send it with a bunch of people, then it makes it it makes it loud, makes a loud thing. Right?
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
So then Rashi says, and it looks like you're going to sell it in the shuk. Why? I don't know. Why if 3 people? It's sort of like Marasayan. It's not Marasayan, but it's more like chashad that we said the other night. It's more chashad that it looks like you're going to sell it in the shuk. When you go with a bunch of people, it looks like you're making a whole situation out of it, as opposed to just sending some food privately to your neighbor.
So, Yaakov, are you answering sukkah hopping for the kids? This Mishna?
No, see that
sukkah hopping.
It seems like going to their house and taking the food is no problem. It seems like sending is the issue.
Can you
if they,
can you assur it though?
Can I assur it?
Please.
Yeah, if that floats your boat, we could say assur. You know what I mean? I don't know why it should be assur. Like
somebody's sukkah falls down and is going to his friend 3 doors away to eat in the sukkah. So he has to bring or he's coming from the 13th floor of a building, and he's bringing all this stuff downstairs.
He's bringing it to himself.
That's fine. This is only to send to your friend.
Mhm.
It's only an issue to send because it might look like you're taking it to sell in the
And if you're
shop.
bringing it down, doesn't look like
I guess not. You're right. If you're bringing it for yourself, how about walking to shul with the coffee? How's that? If you want to answer things, right? Walking to shul with your coffee in your hand. So does it look like you're going to send to sell the coffee? Does it look like you're bringing it to your friend? I don't know.
No, but it doesn't look like you're going to shul either.
It looks like you're going to the train.
Exactly. It looks like you go.
Especially,
Looks like you go to
especially
work.
you have the taller zekel that you carry over your shoulder with the belt, and you're carrying your coffee. So a guy thinks you're going to the 702 train from Lawrence, or I would think you're going to shul.
Right, and a chanami. So they haven't banned that yet. But I imagine-
And especially because we asked Borsalito, so he's wearing a ball cap also. So Mamish looks like he's going to work.
What bothers you more, the coffee or the strap on the tefillin bag?
The strap, 100%.
Okay.
You're touching a strong point here.
I know. That's why I said it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the whole issue. It's looking. It's
Yaakov, you got it. It's Hakol liner, but the face is you. It's a little strange.
Yes. Yeah. I have no comment. All right, so let's see. Reb Shimon Mata B'Tfuah. Reb Shimon says you're even allowed to send grain. Tani Reb Shimon Mata B'Tfuah. Go in chitin lasses mehen ludius, wheat, in order to make from them ludius is some sort of Michael made out of chitin. Rashi says sairim barley litin lebehemtoi, because barley you can give it in front of your behemoth. You can give it to the behemoth. And adoshim lasses mehen resisin, and beans you can make resisin, which is Michael made out of Adoshim. Right? I can't say I understand what Rashi's trying to tell us here. Right? Rashi says Resisin, it's a Michael that's made from Adoshim. I mean, that's what the Gemara says, right? Adoshim, Lasim, and Resisin. Okay, whatever it is, as long as so Reb Shimon is the most makel because he says as long as this ep is something you could do with these foods, then you're fine. Okay, Zog the Mishnah. Mashachin Kalim, you're allowed to send Kalim. Now, Kalim here doesn't mean utensils, it means clothing. You're allowed to send clothing, bein tfurin, bein sheina tfurin, whether they're sewn or whether they're not sewn. Right? V'ava pishayesh ben klayim, and even if it has shatness in it, yeah, you're still allowed to send it. Vein l'tzarech hamoyed, because you have them the v'tzarech hamoyed. Now, what exactly is the tzarech hamoyed for this if you can't wear it? Right? Avaloi sandal am, but you cannot send a sandal that has nails in it. And not shoes that are not sewn. And you can't even send a white shoe because it needs an uman. Rashi says it needs a white shoe is going to need an uman to make it black. This is the rule. Anything that you can get hana from it on Yom Tov, you're allowed to send to your friend. Right? So the Gemara says, the Gemara asks, I understand that sewn clothing, you can use it for clothing on Yom Tov. And if it's not sewn, you could use it as a cover for something. Like use it as a blanket. What are you going to use klayim for? What could you possibly do with
Yaakov?
Yeah.
That's for sure business. You didn't let the three of your kids bring over soup to somebody because it looks like you're going to the shuk. So you carry over piecework, you carry over 15 shirts that weren't sewn yet because the guy's going to do work for you the day after Yom Tov. That's mamish business.
I hear. If you paint the scenario the way you just said it.
Well, that's what not sewn clothing is.
You're right.
Piecework in your house. That's everybody. That's how everybody worked 100 years ago. Much less in the time of the Gemara.
No, I hear that. I don't know what why they didn't again with the Yom Tov. It's so interesting that they didn't make when they made the Gzera, when they didn't make the Gzera. You're right. It didn't say. I mean, is there a maximum of unsewn clothing that you can send? We only said before that it's a maximum amount of people. But we didn't say anything about amounts of clothing. You're right. A guy goes with a whole pile of unsewn clothing. What are you going to think when you see this guy do it? You're going to think he's going to the shuk. I don't know. Anyways, Ela Klayim Lamai Chazir, the first wide line. Klayim, what are you going to do with Klayim? To say, okay, maybe Klayim, so you can't wear it because of shatnez. Maybe you could sit on it. But Tani lo yala alecha, you shouldn't put shatnez on top of you. But you're allowed to put it under you. But the Chacham made a gezer and they said, also last is kain. Perhaps you're going to end up one string of shatnez that you're sitting on is going to end up getting wrapped on your skin, and you're going to end up benefiting from it. And if you're going to say, okay, the masig midi beni, well, maybe you could put down like a piece of plastic. You need some padding. You want to use this shatnez for padding on Yom Tov. So you put a piece of plastic over it, and then there's no chashash of any strings of the shatnez getting stuck on you. So that can't be. Amar Rav Shimon Pazim Rav Shimon Levi, Amar Rav Yaisi ben Shaul, Amar Rebbe Mishum Kehila Kedisha Yerushalayim. Afilu Esam Matzah Zul Gavzu Uklayim Tachtein. Even if you have 10 mattresses or pillows or whatever it is, one on top of the other, Uklayim Tachtein, and the climb's under the 10th level. So, like, what are the chances of a string possibly coming there? Meaning you have 10 covers over the climb, you're still not also lishanim. You're not allowed to sleep on them, right? Mishum, well, okay, the parentheses doesn't really have to do with it. So whatever
you have
it is,
all the stories of the different gedolim. They didn't sit down on the train. They didn't sit down on the wagon.
right? Because all
these stories of the gedolim.
Yeah, because of this.
Yeah.
Right. So we say, so what's a pshat? So what are you doing with the shatnez that you're allowed to send it on Yom Tov? Ella bevilon. We're talking about with a curtain. So you could take it as a curtain. You could use the shatnez as a curtain. Why did they say that a curtain is tameh? Meaning, normally a house can never become tameh. If there's a mace in a house, anything inside the house becomes tameh, but the house itself can't become tameh. Right, but you have a curtain. So what's with a curtain? Is that considered a wall, or is that or is that a utensil? So the halach is that it's a utensil, right? So why is it tamei? Because the shamash heats himself up next to it, meaning he uses it as the shamash will sometimes use it as a coat. So you see that they would even use vilain as some sort of garment of clothing. Ella. So it's a percussion. It's talking about where it's made very hard, and if it's hard, then you're not allowed to. Then you're allowed to sit on it, right? And something that's hard, it's not going to make you warm. So therefore, it's okay. Which is really the way we paskin, which is the kasha on all these maisim of the gedolim. Right, that they didn't want, like the stipler, didn't want to sit on the train and all that. I mean, unless it maybe was soft, maybe the chairs were soft, that could be. But if it was a hard chair, then it's really no problem.
Maybe Allah didn't want to. Allah it's mutter, but they want to be machmer. They
wanted to be machmer. Okay, that could be. Fichihad Amar Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua Hai Namta Gamda the Narash Sharia. Right, you're allowed to sit on this hard piece of material from Narash, right? Because it doesn't give any sort of warmth, so therefore you're not getting enough from the shatnez. Amar Papa, Ardalin ein behen mishum klayim. So Ardalin is something that is some sort of boots or something like that. They don't have any klayim. Right? But Rashi says they would put it under their shoes and it was full of wool. Yeah. So Amar Rava, Hani Tzradi the Pshiti, the bag, like a money bag. Ein behem mishum klayim. There's no assur klayim. Right? Meaning even if you know that there's klayim in it, there's no problem in it because it's very the money makes it hard and you won't get heated up from it. The Bazrani, but if it's meant for holding seeds, that is klayim, because and you're not allowed to put it on your shoulder because that is going to give you some sort of warmth. Rav Ashi Amar they They both don't have klein l'fi. That's not the way you normally warm yourself up with it. It has to be something that your body will normally get warmed up with. This reminds me of the Shaila Rabban, right, with the baseball glove. I don't know, way back when there was a whole issue that the baseball gloves have shotness in them, because baseball gloves, the padding, they would stick all sorts of materials, leftover junk. So some were saying that it's could be a shotness issue, which based on this Gemara doesn't make any sense that it would be an issue, because we're saying only things that you normally use to warm yourself up, right? And this is not.
Over here he brings
The
down
baseball glove is not a problem?
I don't think so.
he
What?
brings down that there's a Beis Hillel and a stipler in this thing.
What about which part?
About this warming up.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm not familiar with it. We just, the Stipler has the famous story that he fell asleep.
So he must probably has a whole shakla why he didn't do it.
I don't know if he has a shot. Okay, I don't know, but right.
No?
Yeah, the Olim knows the story that he's referring to. The Stipler.
No, what's the story?
The Chazon Ish was the shotgun for the Stipler. So he told his sister he has a great shidduch. So the Stipler comes on the date, and he falls asleep. So she comes to the Chazon Ish. She said, "What kind of guy did you read me a shidduch? He came on a date and fell asleep." He said, "I have to find out what happened." So the Stipler told him what happened is that he knew he'd be traveling the whole next day to go to the date. So he stayed up a whole night learning. Then he got on the train and he saw these soft chairs. So he thought maybe it's shotness. So he thought he was going to sleep on the train, but he had to stay up. So he didn't sleep for 2 days. So he fell asleep. He says, "Give me another chance." Or I don't know if he said it that way, but another date and everything was, yeah.
Mashiach, the story before that is why did the Chazon Ish pick the stipler to go with his sister? Because one time during Chazaras Hashatz, the Chazon Ish was learning a sefer, and it gechapt after he never learned during Chazaras Hashatz. Pink, what did he learn? It was a stipler sefer. She said, "Must be something that because I was learning during Chazaras Hashatz, because I listened to the shots. Must be something about this."
Oh yeah, I never heard that. I never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we'll stop over here. What time tomorrow? Does anybody have any idea what time? I don't remember what we did last year. I'm saying
You're
before
supposed to
then.
learn the ayat so you can have more time to eat.
Yeah, I'm saying. So I imagine we'll.
I think we did right after Mincha.
Naftali, 8:45. Landau, 8:45.
8:45, 9, I thought.
It's the same time every night.
So what? 3:30? What time is the Aaron Kaplan? Is he on?
Mincha by Aaron is 3:00. Is Mincha?
Shayashav is 3:30. No.
Is it? I have no
It's
idea.
usually 3:00, but I'll look right now.
Okay, so let's call it tentatively for 3:30, or should we do it a little later?
Mincha is 3:30. They changed it.
Shayashav is 3:30.
Go 4 o'clock. You do 4?
I think a little 4 o'clock. What time is Shkia? What time? Is
Lucky's there is the 6:45. Kol Nidre is 6:50 in Shayashav. Shkia is 7:03.
Okay, so I think 4 o'clock is somewhere right before the Suda, and I think 4 o'clock makes sense. Yeah, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's a good time for us to hide out.
There you go. Oh, that's Taka. Right, that's true.
Earlier might not be as good of a time.
We'll have an hour and a half. We'll have an hour and a half Daf tomorrow to get everybody out of whatever errands they have to run. All right, fine. Now, good night.
Thank you. It's Yaakov.
Yes.
A baseball mitt might be different because technically you're wearing these things that are cushion.
So what?
The things that are cushion in this Gemara are not clothing; they're not being worn. So something that's not worn, then we might be chayshish that you'll warm yourself up with it.
Gershon, when the
worn.
Beis Hillel played ball, the balls were very soft. They didn't wear mitts by the Beis Hillel's team.
Okay.
All right. That's all.
What do you call it?
It could be this whole gezerah and lack of it is only when it's not being worn. Something that's being worn always has a problem with shop.
Think so? Think so?
It could be. I'm just saying you don't necessarily see from this Gemara Although arguably you could say that a baseball mitt's not being worn. It's just a protection.
Right, that's what I was thinking. You're not going to call that. You're not going to call that wearing.
Technically, it is wearing. I don't know if you could be mechalish, but
Right. I hear. I don't know. I don't think they had a problem with it.
chances are not. It's not. Yeah.